Welcome again in this session of the GloBUNTU Think Plus Do Equal Be Masterclass 2020. My name is B.Achaleke. I am the founder of the GloBUNTU Mindshift system. That is the system that I am using to run this masterclass for you. Before we get started, let me share this piece with you. I read some years ago that quantum physicians have proven that each human being has up to 60,000 thoughts every day. 60,000 thoughts every day. The piece also said that just about 1% of us human beings are capable of transforming 10% of those thoughts into something positive. Does that surprise you? Do you know that you have 60,000 thoughts every day? Are you even aware of them? If you were to take a conscious look at them, what would they look like? What percentage of them will be positive and what percentage will be negative? Will you say you belong to the 1% who have 10% of their thoughts in a positive direction, or will you belong to the masses of 90%? And if you found that out, what changes are you going to make today in order to be on the other side, positivity? How positive are your thoughts? How willing and ready are you to be a positive thinking person in life? In this session of the masterclass, I want to focus on something that is so massive. In fact, it is so eminent. We do it every day, and it has something to do with this concept of the 60,000 thoughts in a day. So you're asking yourself, what is this? It is self-sabotage. Self-sabotage, you got me right. Self-sabotage is so massive. We practice it every day, consciously, but most of the time unconsciously. And this is the danger about self-sabotage. Self-sabotage manifests itself in so many ways. It has so many forms. It has so many shapes. When you know what it is, when you can pinpoint it each time that it manifests, you are on the right track. And when you belong to the 1%, you are in the best position to channel your thoughts, to lead you to where you want to go, to help you to do what you want to do, and to become who you want to become. Does that make sense to you? Great. So self-sabotage, I call it, is the ancestor, the great-great-grandmother and great-great-grandfather of so many other phenomena like fear, self-doubt, procrastination. Does that ring a bell in your head? So let's take them one by one. Self-sabotage is that one thing that stops you from doing the things that you want to do or from becoming the person that you want to become. You actually know it. You want it. For some reasons, you don't really get down to doing it or to becoming it. And you ask yourself sometimes why. Sometimes you're working your ass off. You're putting all that you have and even more. You're spending sleepless nights. You are spending all the little resources that you have in order to get to somewhere. You're just not getting there. And you don't really know. And you can't understand why. So self-sabotage is someone that you don't want to have in your neighborhood. Someone that you don't want to have in your friend's circle is someone that you don't want even to be friend in 2020. So let's talk about this self-sabotage thing. Does this sound familiar to you when you have the feeling that each time that you want to do a particular thing, you get distracted, something comes up, or you find something else to do? That's just one of the signs of self-sabotage. So let me tell you the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren of self-sabotage. One of them is fear. And fear is something that I will be talking about in the next session, but let me just brush on it right now. Fear is something that keeps us away from doing what we want to do. It's something that really paralyzes us when we least want. It is something that we sometimes don't have the feeling that we don't have control over. But when you ask yourself, what are you afraid of? What is it that you're afraid of? You find out that sometimes your fear just have to do with the fact that you're insecure, you have less knowledge or less information, or you think you are less qualified, or it has to do with something that is unknown to you. But fear is actually non-existent. The word fear, just like any other word, is empty until we put emotions and feelings onto it, and then it starts frightening us. Peter Grover once said, fear is false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. It is something that doesn't exist, but because we project our emotions into it, it actually starts becoming real. Let me share my experience with fear with you. Remember I told you in one of the videos that shit happened in Austria and I wasn't able to pay my rent for 2 months. So when that happened, my landlord sent a lawyer to me and the lawyer launched a case against me. We never went to court because I was able to settle that outside of the courtroom. But because that happened, I told myself that I must have a criminal track record. I mean, I had no evidence. So when I moved from Austria to South Africa, I needed to apply for a long stay permit. In order to apply for this, I needed a certificate of non-conviction from Austria, because I had put in my headspace that I must have a criminal track record because the landlord opened a case against me. I was so afraid to go collect the certificate of non-conviction from Austria. I had to go back to Austria every 3 months for 2.5 years. Can you imagine how much money that cost me? How much time that cost me? Yes, when I went to Austria, it was time for me to see my kids, but I could have saved myself a whole lot of money, a whole lot of trouble, and above all, the fear inside of me, this anxiety. I was like, I don't want to go there, because if I go there, they will give me a certificate of non-conviction that says I've been convicted. So I put all these things in my head, and I will not go to collect that certificate. The day I finally decided to conquer fear, to overcome fear, to walk into that office to collect my certificate of non-conviction, oh my goodness, look at me. I even feel ashamed to say this. But the fact was that I had a clean certificate of non-conviction. There was nothing in it at all. And I had kept myself away for 2.5 years, telling myself that something was not good about it. So when I collected it, just to convince myself that that this certificate of non-conviction was really good, and that I had finally overcome my fears, I had to go back to that office. Each time that I was in Austria, I would go collect another certificate of non-conviction. It was my way of overcoming fear. So I share that story with you to help you understand how much fear can cause us at the end of the day, and how harmless, how empty, what a false evidence it is, that word fear. So the question to you is, what are you afraid of? What has fear been keeping you away from doing, or from becoming, from getting? What is your biggest fear, and why is it fear to you? When you unpack it, what is it that you see? Who says you have to be afraid of that person, such a circumstance, or that situation? Why do you think you have to be afraid of it? What if you unpacked the fear to find out what is it that is really making you be afraid? So fear, for me, is that big bunch that is the great-great-granddaughter of self-sabotage. When you let fear stop you from doing things, you sabotage yourself. So fear is one of the things that you really want to look into, whether it is justifiable for you to be afraid, whatever you are afraid of. The next granddaughter of self-sabotage is self-doubt. You know that feeling when you keep telling yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm not capable, no, I have to learn something new, no, I don't have what it takes to do it, I need someone to approve that I'm capable of doing it. Self-doubt manifests itself also in many ways, and it is nothing but a form of self-sabotage, because let me tell you, you are enough where you are. You are enough with what you have. You are capable, you are qualified. You just need to get started. Get started with whatever it is that needs to be done in order for you to be happy, in order for you to become who you want to become. Because no amount of self-doubt is justifiable. No amount of self-doubt is worth it to keep you away from your dream. Get what our whole life is a story, and that story could be a book. That book comes in the form of chapters, paragraphs, sentences, words. Okay, each one of them is good enough. If you are just one word in that book, you are good enough, because it takes words to build that book. If you're just a paragraph in that book, you are good enough, because without paragraphs, there is no story. If you are a page, goodness gracious, you are good enough, because a story is made out of pages. If you are the whole book, if you are a chapter, you are so good. And if you are a book, you can be a book without chapters, without pages, without paragraphs, and without words. So what I'm trying to say is that you are good enough. Get started with whatever you want to do, and don't let self-doubt, and don't let any amount of self-doubt stop you from doing it. Get started right now. The next grandson or granddaughter of self-sabotage is procrastination. Yes, we all do it all the time. You know, when you want to do different things, you know, when you say, no, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week, I will do it on my birthday, I will do it in 2020, I will do it when I have the money, I will do it when, and you have the feeling that when is never coming, that moment is never there, that what it takes for you to do it is never there. So you keep procrastinating and wasting time. Let me tell you, procrastination is a form of self-sabotage. How long do you want to sabotage yourself? How long do you want to kill your dreams? How long do you want to sit on your masterpiece? How long do you want to let those excuses stop you from having a fabulous 2020? How long are you going to wait to get started? So please, procrastination is a form of self-sabotage that you definitely should strive as much as possible. Get started with whatever it is, whether you're ready or not. Let me tell you, when I started writing books, the first book was all full of typos. There were so many people who said a lot of things about it, but I was determined to carry on. Had I not carried on, I would not have written 18 books in less than 3.5 years, and I would not have them in schools. Okay, so procrastination is someone that you want to avoid on your way to 2020. Don't let procrastination befriend you. Another one is anxiety. Oh, when you wake up in the morning and your heart beats boom, 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 you have a feeling that you have a big stone in your tummy. It's weighing you down. You have the feeling that your knees are giving up on you, and you fear that every other bad thing is going to happen. This is anxiety. When you fill yourself with anxiety, it weighs you down. It keeps you away from your masterpiece. Anxiety is not a good friend, and you shouldn't have anxiety in your neighborhood. And when you look into it, you realize that it's just a feeling that you project into that word anxiety. The word itself is empty and harmless, like anything you can think of. So anxiety is what we make it. It is a form of self-sabotage that you may want to watch out for. Another one is blame. When you blame everyone else for everything that is happening in your life or not happening. When you blame the system, I used to be a master in blaming the Austrian system for not allowing me to be who I wanted to be. And when you blame people, you know what? You give them so much power over you. You give them so much control over you. And when you give someone power and control over you, you can be sure that you will become the slave of that person or that system. So blaming people for things that are happening or not happening to you is a form of self-sabotage. And again, blame is not a circumstance that you should stay in. Mandela once said, blame is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. When you are blaming people for whatever you're blaming them for, you're carrying something like an ulcer in you. It is all in you. The pain is in you. That negative feeling is in you, not in them. So please do yourself a favor and avoid blame on your way. If there is something to blame, think about it, reflect on it, find a lesson in it, and put it aside and move on. You've got no time to waste on blaming people, blaming situations. If you don't like it, change it. And there is no point in wasting energy in something that you can't change, okay? The truth is that at the end of the day, we can change any circumstances, any situations that come our way. It is all in our hands. So make sure that the next time that blame knocks on your door, tell it to move on because you got no time for it. Okay, another one that is very close to procrastination is excuses. You find excuses for everything that needs to be done or is not done. If you are spending more time finding excuses for situations than finding solutions, then you're self-sabotaging yourself. You get that? If you're spending more time finding excuses for things that are not done or for whatever situations it is, then you are in a space of self-sabotage. So excuses are no friends. There's just no point in getting started. No excuse is big enough. So kick all the excuses out of your space, kick them out of the way on your journey to 2020, and you'll see that you'll have a fabulous life. Another big granddaughter or grandson of self-sabotage is anger. Anger, you carry it inside of you. You carry it inside of you everywhere, every day, every night. You're angry at people. You're angry at situations. I used to be there. I used to find so many things that made me angry. You know that law of attraction that says what you focus on expands? That's what it is. So if you are going to be angry, you're going to nurture that feeling of anger in you. Believe me, you'll find so many situations that will make you be angrier every day. And at the end of the day, you are wasting your life. Just think about people who did not wake up today. When you have the gift of life, you're wasting it on anger. And the truth is, when your time comes to leave this earth and your creator knocks at the door and says, I'm taking you home, you can't tell them, well, listen, I waste so many hours of my life being angry. Can you give me some more time? There's nothing like that. Time is your most limited resource here. So don't waste it on self-sabotaging yourself with anger. Okay, another one is victimization, self-victimization. When you spend your time playing the victim, because something happened to you, you talk about it all the time. You talk about it not because you want to find a solution, but because you want attention. You feel like you're a victim, you're helpless, you are being used, you're being abused, you're being disrespected, all has to do with you. It has to do with your attitude. It has to do with with how you present yourself, how you show up, how you speak, and how you perceive things. It has to do with the way you go around with your life. So making yourself a victim of circumstances doesn't help you. I used to make myself a victim of racism, exclusion, discrimination, stereotypes in Austria. And when you do that, they all come running to you because they know that they have a fertile home in you. They come in abundance. They bring their families and their great-grandchildren, and they all come find space in you. So you don't want self-victimization to rent space in your heart, in your head, in your mind, in your thought, in your life, because, hey, you're worth better than that, and they don't deserve to be in your space. And by the way, they don't pay rent, so you want to really avoid them. Another one of the granddaughters and grandsons of self-sabotage is jealousy. You don't need to compare yourself to anyone. You're so unique. Your creator created you so uniquely that you don't have to compete with anyone. Just because your friends are doing things differently doesn't mean that they're better than you. There's no point for you to be jealous of them. You do your own things the way you want to do them, the way it feels good to you, the way it makes you happy, and you move on. You just be your authentic self. If you are jealous about what others are doing because you have the feeling that they have it all or they're doing it better than you, you're wasting your time. You're self-sabotaging yourself. So jealousy is not someone that you want to befriend, not on your journey to 2020, not in your life at all, because you are good the way you are. You are your best when you are a happy person, and a happy person is not a jealous person. Shame. Oh, we feel ashamed of things that have happened in the past. We feel ashamed of things that we can do. I'll tell you my other story about shame. Oh my goodness. When I was unable to pay my rent and shit happened, I thought like, I am letting down my children. I'm letting down my parents. I'm letting down my family. I don't even have to talk about this. Oh my goodness. If they knew, oh my goodness, how can I show my face? How can I show up? The best way to let shame go is when you consider whatever happens to you in life as a learning curve. It is something that you need to learn. Yes, it happened that way out of your powers, out of your control. So what? It happened. You can't undo it. And no amount of shame will make it undone. So what you have to do is when it happens, embrace it and let it go and say it is what it is. I am the winner because out of this situation, I learned. Let me tell you one of the things that have been so useful to me in life. One of the lessons, I made up my mind for whatever uncomfortable situation that I get in, whatever painful situation that I get in, I make one conscious decision. I am on research. I am on research. Being on research means that I need to have a finding, and a finding that will be useful to me or to someone, or a finding that could become part of my concept. In fact, my GloBUNTU mind shift concept is full of findings about life situations that I've gone through. And when you make that conscious decision to be on research, you cannot be ashamed of anything. You cannot be afraid of anything. You know you're always the winner because you always win a lesson from whatever situation that happens to you in life. And your pains of today are your possible PowerPoints. If you know how to transform those pain points into PowerPoints, you win. That is what makes experienced people in life. And I remember Kai Young once said, life actually begins at 40. Up until then, we are doing research. So whatever happens that you think makes you feel ashamed, consider it to be your research point. You're doing research and pick up the pieces, pick up the lessons, and run like a winner. That's what I'm trying to say to you right here. Don't let shame sabotage you. Not anymore. I know this video has been very long, but you bear with me that those neighbors, those bad guys are really, really powerful, and we need to really unpack them. One of them is distraction. Oh my goodness. When you're distracted from doing what you want to do. And one of the main distractions that we have today is social media, is internet, is being online. You know, when you want to do something, you go online to do research, and then one link takes you to one thing and to the next and the next and the next. And before you realize, you're completely out of what you wanted to do. You're completely distracted. That's something that you want to look into. It is a form of self-sabotage when you let yourself be carried away from one link to the other. Be sure of what you want to do. When you go online, focus on that and do not be distracted. Another thing that really distracts is WhatsApp. When I want to write my book, you know what I do? I turn off my phone. I turn it off because I know when the messages come in, I respond. So sometimes we feel like when the messages come in, we need to respond. Some people think, oh, I see her online. Why is it that she's not responding? Damn, people don't know what you're doing. People don't know what you're up to. So you don't want them to take all of your time because you want to give them the feeling that you're attending to them when you're not even attending to yourself. When you learn how to attend to yourself, when you learn how to attend to your needs, when you learn how to attend to your own priorities, you will not let any WhatsApp messages distract you. You will not let any messages on Facebook distract you. In fact, no Twitter, no Instagram, no amount of all of those will distract you. But until you learn that lesson, until you take control over them, it will continue to be a form of self-sabotage to you. All those distractions. The phone distracts you. When people show up unannounced, they distract you. So you want to be clear in your communication. You want to be clear and focused on the things that you want to do. So one of the ways of doing that properly is when you set the time to do all your WhatsApp, you set a time to go answer your emails, set the time to go on social media, and you set a time that is so holy, that time that is so important for you to do what you want to do, so important that you don't allow anyone to interfere. No amount of messages interfere. That is what I call being in control of your time. That is what I call being able to no longer sabotage yourself. That's what I call creating enabling systems and being in a position to drive your life the way you want without anyone distracting you. So those were just some of the forms of self-sabotage that we deal with every day that I wanted to speak about. There are quite a lot of them. If you look into your space, you may discover some of them that I have not mentioned. I was just here to drop a few. It is up to you to look into your spaces to see which of those I've mentioned or which of those that I did not mention are those that are sabotaging you, are those that are keeping you away from your next masterpiece, are those that you do not need on your journey to 2020 because, hey, you want 2020 to be your fabulous year. So this has been a very long video. Drop a comment below. Tell me what has been your form of self-sabotage and how is it that you're going to change it. If you don't have an idea on how you can transform it into a PowerPoint, how you can change it, then let me know and I will give you a tip. I have known them over so many years and I have developed so many tools that enable me to kick them out of my space when I don't want them. So I'll be happy to share them with you. Again, thank you for being in this masterclass with me. Thank you for journeying with me. And thank you for taking full control of your life and kicking self-sabotage out of your life from this moment on. I will see you in the next video.